Friday, July 21st, 2017. You are listening to Inception Radio Network, voice of the fringe majority. This is Carol Carl with UFO Headline News. We could almost begin tonight's Earth-Sky forecast with that old nursery rhyme song, I'm a little teapot, short and stout, but we won't. But here is the headline, Find the Teapot and the Galaxy's Center. Tonight, or any moonless evening during a Northern Hemisphere summer or a Southern Hemisphere winter, you can look in the evening hours toward the center of our Milky Way galaxy. It's located in the direction of Sagittarius the Archer, which happens to contain a famous asterism, one of those noticeable patterns of stars, but they're not really a constellation. This one's called the Teapot. From the Northern Hemisphere, you'll be looking south during the evening hours if you want to find this star pattern. And if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, look for the Teapot to climb high overhead around mid to late evening. If you're blessed with a dark sky, finding this will be easy. In a dark sky, you're going to see a broad boulevard of stars, the edgewise view into our own Milky Way galaxy, which broadens and brightens in the direction of the galaxy's center. Or maybe you know the planets. If you have that dark sky, in 2017, the starry band of the Milky Way passes between said Teapot and the golden planet Saturn. It lies about midway between the spout of the Teapot and Saturn this year. If you don't know Saturn and you don't have a dark sky, the chart you can find later at ufoheadlinenews.com will help you out with that. It's provided by an individual named Astrobob. He expands the view, including the constellations Scorpius, etc. Sagittarius the Archer and its Teapot asterism is next to Scorpius on the sky's dome. We can't really see the galactic center. It's heavily veiled by intervening stars, star clusters, and nebulae, those vast clouds of gas and dust. The center of our Milky Way looms some 26,000 light-years away. But we can gaze toward this direction in space, and if your sky is dark enough, it is a sight to behold. By the way, the Teapot actually makes up the western half of the constellation Sagittarius the Archer. Modern eyes have an easier time envisioning a teapot than an archer with a drawn-out bow. From temperate latitudes in the Northern Hemisphere, it's pretty easy to make out the summer triangle asterism rather high in your eastern sky at nightfall. This huge star formation consists of those three brilliant stars we talk about here, Vega, Deneb, and Altair, and can oftentimes withstand the glare of the full moon or even a light-polluted city. If you're otherwise lost on some starry night, but you can't find the summer triangle, let this signpost star formation escort you to the Teapot. And don't forget trying that imaginary line drawing from Deneb through Altair to star hop to that Teapot. Here's the bottom line. Blessed with a dark sky, try finding the Teapot and the direction to the galactic center on these moonless nights. Here's an interesting headline written by Swapna Krishna for Engadget.com. Headline, One single theory may have solved 3 Mars mysteries. We still aren't quite sure how Mars formed. There are many questions about its distinct geology and its weird but lovable potato moons that don't really make sense. But now, a study in the journal Geophysical Research Letters may have solved some of the enduring mysteries of the red planet. Mars has hemispheres that are geologically different from one another, smooth to the north, cratered in the south. Additionally, the aforementioned potato moons and a composition that is different from Earth's add to its mystery. Researchers Stephen Mosges and Ramon Brasser discovered that it was possible to have just one explanation for all 3 phenomena, and here's that explanation, a giant asteroid collision. After the planets first formed, a lot of leftover debris was floating around the early solar system. These asteroids slammed into the planets as they were settling, violently bombarding, reshifting planetary compositions. The giant impact model theorizes that the rocky inner planets were initially smaller than they are now. Asteroid impacts added to their masses as they absorbed the elements within this space debris and reformed themselves. The researchers took a close look at Martian meteorites and realized that the composition of metals within its mantle could have come from one large asteroid impact. They calculated the size of the asteroid needed to deliver these metals found using Mars impact simulations. The final result? An asteroid the size of Ceres, roughly 1,200 kilometers, 745 miles wide, may have impacted the planet around 4.43 billion years ago, and Mars likely was subjected to smaller impacts afterwards. The asteroid hit the Northern Hemisphere of Mars, which would explain the fact that that area's crust is younger than that of other Martian areas, and ejected enough material from its surface to create a planetary ring. And this could possibly have resulted in the formation of Mars' two moons, those potato guys, Phobos and Deimos, and that would also explain their composition. These bodies are made of both Martian and non-Martian elements. We still don't know anything for sure, such is space science, but the fact that this one theory solves multiple mysteries of Mars' origins and geological features lends weight to it. The researchers hope to add further credence to their theory by studying more Martian meteorites and understanding how asteroids affected our solar system's formation. Yes, the mysteries of space science. Speaking of which, that segues us right into our next headline, Distant Kuiper Belt Object Observed by New Horizons NASA Team in Argentina. We grabbed this story from the International Business Times Space Department with a byline for Nina Godlewski. NASA's New Horizons team, based in Argentina, made another groundbreaking observation of a distant Kuiper Belt object last weekend. This object is 4 billion miles away, and researchers were able to detect it because it passed in front of another star. That's according to a news release from NASA. In just a few seconds, the researchers caught its shadow passing the bright light of a distant star. The object effectively fully blocked the star, that event called occultation, and the researchers were able to capture the event. It was no coincidence that the researchers were able to catch the object on the move. The team had set up telescopes in a fairly remote area in Argentina to get a glimpse of the object. That object, 2014 MU69. This makes 5 occultations the team has observed and recorded to beef up their data on 2014 MU69. The researchers had known they'd be able to capture the occultation since May. They knew the occultations would be occurring on certain days, June 3rd, July 10th, and July 17th, so they were able to prepare. They had more than 60 observers ready with 24 mobile telescopes ready to catch 2014 MU69, and all of this was done to help prepare for an even more grand observation that's coming up, New Year's Day 2019. In addition to the research team working to see the Kuiper Belt object, the government and people of Argentina had a hand in making this observation possible. To ensure the best conditions possible to observe, streetlights were turned off, a major highway was shut down for 2 hours, and people even parked their cars to help block the wind at these observation sites. On January 1st, 2019, the New Horizons spacecraft is set to fly by the Kuiper Belt object, and the hope is that these observations made from Earth will give researchers a better idea about its shape and size before the craft gets there. Before these most recent observations, only the Hubble telescope had been able to detect this object, and it wasn't able to determine anything about size or shape. Even now, with the observations, it will take researchers weeks to make any determinations about this object. The observations New Horizons makes as it flies by the object will set the record for the furthest distance between a craft and the object it's observing. New Horizons launched on January 19, 2006, and has been sending back observations since. It was observing Pluto and its surroundings for much of its mission, but now it's past that distant planet, and soon enough it will conduct an extended mission to study the Kuiper Belt and 2014 MU69. So, has this week maybe left you feeling a tad listless? Well, don't worry, we've got a list right here. The top 5 places to look for extraterrestrial life. This is from the publication Cosmos. Their headline, The Top 5 Places to Look for Extraterrestrial Life. Subheadline, It's a mighty big universe, but ET hunters are zeroing in on these prime candidates. This is a byline for Andrew Masterson. For all the hope and expectation, it's sobering to recall that despite the best efforts of scientists and engineers, there still is no evidence that life exists anywhere beyond our own planet. There are, however, some planetary prime suspects. Here are the 5 places astronomers and astrobiologists think are the best chances for harboring ET. Let's begin with LHS 1140b, lowercase b. News of this planet, a rocky super-Earth, was announced in the journal Nature last April. Orbiting a red dwarf 39 light-years from Earth, the planet sits in its star's habitable zone, that Goldilocks zone, and it has an estimated mass almost 7 times that of our own planet, leading to the assumption that it comprises rock encasing a solid iron core. According to Jason Dittman of the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics in Massachusetts, LHS 1140b's density means that it might have survived the runaway global warming thought to denude many red dwarf planets. And if so, it might now boast a stable atmosphere and liquid water. Quote, "This is the most exciting exoplanet I've seen in the past decade," said Jason Dittman. He continues, quote, "We could hardly hope for a better target to perform one of the biggest quests in space, searching for evidence of life beyond Earth." End quotes. Next on our list is Enceladus. Thanks to the data from NASA's Cassini spacecraft, Saturn's moon Enceladus has emerged as every ET hunter's favorite target. This is mainly due to the strong likelihood that it features a subterranean ocean. In April this year, a team of scientists from the Southwest Research Institute in Texas revealed a plume of hydrogen erupting from the moon's surface. This plume may be evidence of hydrothermal vents in the subsurface ocean. These are the same type of vents that support extremophile life on Earth. Said Hunter Waite, the principal investigator, quote, "The discovery of hydrogen gas and the evidence for ongoing hydrothermal activity offer a tantalizing suggestion that habitable conditions could exist beneath this moon's icy crust." End quotes. And along comes Titan. We've spoken about Titan recently here on the UFO Headline News. It's one of Saturn's 53 moons. Titan is known to have permanent hydrocarbon lakes, a nitrogen-heavy atmosphere, and possibly a subsurface ocean beneath a salty crust. So it's possible a host for either water-dependent or methane-dependent life. Now here's Proxima b. This planet, discovered in August 2016, orbits the star Proxima Centauri, 4.2 light-years away from our own sun. It's the nearest candidate beyond the solar system for hosting extraterrestrial life. Research in May's Astronomy and Astrophysics journal found that chances of life existing on the planet might hinge on its orbital speed. Astrophysicists at the University of Exeter calculated that if Proxima b rotates on its axis 3 times for every 2 times it orbits its sun, then the chances for it being habitable are substantially improved. And last but not least, TRAPPIST-1. The announcement of the TRAPPIST-1 system last February, with 7 rocky planets orbiting an ultra-cool dwarf star, sent ripples of excitement through astrobiologists everywhere. At least 3 of these planets looked like they were within the star's habitable zone. The latest analysis by Eric Wolf from the Laboratory for Atmospheric and Space Physics at the University of Colorado Boulder has somewhat dampened these expectations, suggesting that only one of the group has life-sustaining potential. But never mind, 1 chance in 7 is still better than no chance at all. Indeed. Here's a perfectly logical segue. This is by Elizabeth Howell for the publication Seeker. Headline: Finding extraterrestrial life may rely on identifying traces rather than aliens. When the famous 15th century inventor and scientist Leonardo da Vinci examined petrified shells with borings in them very long ago, he had a remarkable insight. The strange fossilized formations, he determined, were likely left behind by ancient organisms. Half a millennium later, this perspective is potentially useful in our search for alien life, argues a new paper that appears in the Earth Science Reviews. The findings were recently presented at the European Astrobiology Network Association Congress held in the Netherlands. Astronomers have been weighing options for how to identify the existence of life on other planets and moons in our solar system. There are a range of...
Okay, Kevin, for the grand prize of $1 million, what color is the White House?
I know this.
5 seconds.
Oh, switching to Geico could save you a bunch of money on car insurance?
Okay. Judges? That's true, Kevin. They'll allow it. Congratulations. You're a winner.
Woo! Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
Possibilities. Mars could be host to ancient or current life, depending on how much water flows on the surface and how salty that water is. There are also many icy moons, some with water geysers, in the outer regions of our solar system, among them Saturn's Titan and Enceladus, and Jupiter's Europa and Ganymede. Quote, Leonardo understood the biological nature of borings based on their shape, not their biochemistry, end quotes. That's from André Bacon, the lead researcher. Bacon is an ichnologist, that type of scientist that studies life's traces through burrows, borings, and trails. He previously studied Da Vinci's work and is a researcher at the University of Modena and UNESCO Geopark Naturho. Here's what he says, quote, This observation appears to be trivial, but it potentially allows us to detect extraterrestrial life that differs from known life, end quotes. A major limitation of this kind of study, however, is that animal traces and alterations by geology can sometimes appear very similar. For example, researchers have identified what they say are more than 4 billion-year-old fossils in formations in northern Quebec, Canada. This finding was announced earlier this year. In 2016, a separate team claimed to find a 3.7 billion-year-old microbial mat in Greenland. But given that the Earth is about 4.5 billion years old, critics of these discoveries argue that changes in Earth's geology over billions of years can sometimes mimic those appearances of life forms. Microbiologists therefore need to prove that the older life forms did exist by comparing the older fossils to much younger and better verified examples of life. They must also attempt to verify markings by life against the chemistry of the rocks, although again, this can be altered by rock deformation over time. In this latest study, André Bacon and his colleagues attempt to explain the best way to find extraterrestrial traces. One method of finding those could be looking for, quote, meandering, end quote, trails and burrows, that efficient way for microorganisms to look for food. Rather than making straight lines in the environment or repeatedly crossing a surface, this meandering allows a creature to search for food without exerting too much energy. Quote, rangers looking for tracks on the snow to determine the presence of elusive animals, such as the lynx, end quotes, said Bacon. He pointed out that the traces work for creatures ranging from microscopic organisms to large dinosaurs. He continues, quote, why not do the same with alien tracks, borings, and burrows? Traces of interactions with the substrate, that natural environment for a creature, are a common evidence for life on Earth, and their fossils can survive the humongous pressures and temperatures generated by colliding continents, end quotes, he added. We'll keep our eyes on this study. We found a very cool article written by George Knapp in the LasVegasNow.com. He writes this as the I-Team, and here's his headline. Hacker says United States military has secret space program besides NASA. This hacker, it's a name you will all identify, gentle listeners. Here's the story. Las Vegas. A computer hacker says he's seen evidence that suggests the United States military has its own secret space program, separate from NASA's space effort. And that hacker, yep, it's Gary McKinnon, that computer whiz from the United Kingdom. And just to update you if you've forgotten Mr. McKinnon, or perhaps never heard of him at all, we thought it might be a good idea to meander over to Wikipedia and just pick up this. Gary McKinnon, born the 10th of February, 1966, is a Scottish systems administrator and hacker. He was accused in 2002 of perpetrating the, quote, biggest military computer hack of all time, end quotes. Although McKinnon himself states that he was merely looking for evidence of free energy suppression and a cover-up of UFO activity and other technologies potentially useful to the public. On the 16th of October 2012, after a long struggle, a series of legal proceedings in Britain, Home Secretary Theresa May withdrew her extradition order to the United States. We think, personally, that was a very good thing. Oh, by the way, just a side note here, if you are up for it and interested to sleuth around, YouTube has a couple of music videos. Yep, Gary McKinnon was a rock and roller. Check out his video, Wanton Child, by the way. He was a computer whiz from the United Kingdom, and he's going to talk about all of this at a Las Vegas symposium, the weekend of July 21st through the 23rd. According to Gary McKinnon, in 2001, while he was searching online for evidence about UFOs, he accessed classified NASA computers a total of 13 times. But instead of evidence of UFOs, McKinnon found files about a secret space program operated by the United States Navy, he said. McKinnon says he even found the names of the off-planet crew members. Jan Harzen, the president of the Mutual UFO Network, which meets in Las Vegas this week, told the I-Team, George Knapp, what McKinnon uncovered. Quote, basically, Donna Hare, spelled H-A-R-E, who had worked for NASA, told him about specific buildings where they were airbrushing UFOs out of photographs before releasing them to the public for NASA. That's from Jan Harzen from Mutual UFO Network, MUFON. Quote, he wanted to go find that stuff, and in his search for that information, this is what he stumbled upon, literally, a secret space fleet within the United States Navy, end quotes. Ultimately, Gary McKinnon was arrested for this computer break-in, and the United States tried to extradite him for trial. But after an 8-year legal battle, the British government refused to turn him over. Saturday at noon, McKinnon will speak via Skype to the Mutual UFO Network Symposium, which meets in Las Vegas Friday through Sunday. From what we understand, there is live streaming of this symposium available. It's kind of pricey, but we're sure if you check it out, you can find some kind of access, either now or later. Just a reminder, gentle listeners, we have Off the Beaten Path, our weekend feature for the UFO headline news here at Inception Radio Network, coming up tomorrow. Join us. Here's a sighting at long last. This one comes out of McClelland, Iowa. It's got a MUFON case number 85213. The date of this sighting is the 19th of July, 2017. Got a same-day report. And it isn't actually a sighting, by the way. Here's the summary. Was in-house. Everything went dark for 1 second. It's more of an absence of light than a light in the sky. The viewing distance provided under sighting specifics by our witness, unknown viewing distance. The altitude, unknown. The sighting duration, 1 second. And the features, object flight path, object shape, none of those apply, obviously. Oh, pity there isn't any weather, but our witness does speak to that. Here's the event. I was sitting in the living room watching TV. It was about 4:25 in the afternoon. All of a sudden, the house went dark. No sunlight was coming in the windows. My daughter was in the kitchen at the time, and she asked me, "What was that?" So I jumped up and went outside immediately to see what could have caused this. I found nothing in the sky that could have caused a shadow. No clouds today, no visible planes. And also it was totally silent outside. There was no motor, no jet noise. I believe whatever this had to be was huge. It had to have cast a shadow large enough to darken the whole house at once. And also, it had to be moving away very fast, as this entire incident lasted 1 second. I don't believe it was a cloud, because there was no gradual darkening. This was instantaneous. And again, when I went outside, there were no clouds in the sky. The wind today was about 10 miles per hour. So, what's going on in McClelland, Iowa? This is recent. We'll keep our eyes on that area and see what happens. But now we see what happens every time. We've run out of time. We've got to bounce because that's a wrap. Thank you for listening to Inception Radio Network. Follow today's broadcast at ufoheadlinenews.com.